welcome back to another cup of tea with the vet. And we have got the lovely, lovely Marc Abraham here today with us. And I apologise for us being late. Technical stuff was going to happen at some point, wasn't it?
My fault. All my fault. Yeah.
No worries at all. So, can you introduce yourself, Marc?
I can. My name is Marc Abraham. I'm a vet. I've been qualified a long time now, and I've done many aspects of veterinary work, from normal general practitioner, first opinion vet, to emergency vet, to international sort of voluntary vet, and TV and media vet, and sort of more recently more of a campaigning vet. So lots of different vettingness.
That's amazing. I mean, that is a huge scope of stuff. I mean, wow. I mean, there's a whole lot of skill involved in all of those different areas in a whole lot of different ways. And that means it's obviously made you travel a lot and all sorts of things then, presumably.
Yeah, I mean, when I first qualified, I was locuming, so I was traveling around the UK, and then I've lived in France, I've traveled around Brazil, and then sort of vetted in India and the Amazon, Ukraine, China, Korea.
Wow.
Yeah, it's been a few interesting destinations.
That's huge and amazing. So I want to jump straight to the side of you that I know. I actually met Marc a few years ago when I was at Crufts with my puppy massage DVD, and Marc was there with his puppy stuff, and he was promoting Lucy's Law, which has been really successful. So Marc, can you tell us more about Lucy's Law, because it's really, really important everybody knows about this. And if any of you guys watching have any questions about puppy farming, please ask.
Yeah. Okay. So Lucy's Law is named after an amazingly sweet, brave, hilarious dog called Lucy, obviously, who was rescued from a puppy farm, a licensed legal puppy farm in Wales. She was there for 5 years. She had repeated litters. She was living in horrific conditions, as all puppy farm breeding dogs are in the UK and beyond. I mean, it's not just a problem here, it's a problem in the States, it's a problem all around the world, in Australia. And luckily she was rescued. You know, a lot of them are shot or drowned, but she was rescued and she was fostered, and she ended up in a lovely permanent home with her amazing owner, who's called Lisa. And Lisa and Lucy had incredible adventures, and it was Lisa's first ever rescue dog. She'd only had dogs as puppies before from breeders, and it taught Lisa a lot about sort of rescue and how to give dogs a second chance, especially ex-breeding dogs. Now she's got a few, and it's a story really of this. I've gone off on a bit of a tangent because I know you said I could mention the book, so I will. It's all in here, okay? But Lucy's Law is basically a law named after this incredible dog who only really lasted 3 years in freedom because she succumbed to all her diseases, which were included sort of epilepsy and arthritis and dry eye and separation anxiety and all sorts of problems. But in those 3 years, her owner Lisa made her into a little bit of a social media superstar, and started a page called Lucy the Rescue Cavalier on Facebook, which still exists, and I recommend everyone likes it. Not now, obviously, you have to listen to me, but only for an hour, which is all right. So yeah, and I thought because there was such almost like a movement starting of anti-puppy farm campaigners by all the people that were liking Lucy's page on Facebook, and all the adventures she got up to and the events she went to and the red carpets and the celebrities she was cuddled by, when we needed it. And this was about after 7 years of campaigning and really hitting brick wall after brick wall. I renamed the campaign to ban third-party commercial puppy dealers, Lucy's Law, in her honor. She'd only just passed away about 3 months beforehand. So we rebranded the campaign, and the campaign took on a whole new personal angle, became incredibly popular, more popular because of her. And Lucy's Law was eventually passed after 10 years of campaigning last summer into law, and then it became law in England this year on April the 6th. And basically what it is, it's a ban on third-party commercial puppy and kitten sales. So in the past, we've had third parties such as pet shops selling puppies. And now in England at the moment, it's banned. So you can only go direct to the breeder and see the puppy interacting with its mum in the place it was born, or better still, go to rescue shelter and adopt. So it really cuts down the options of how you get a dog in England. Wales have promised Lucy's Law, and it's coming in the spring. Scotland have promised it, haven't announced a date. And even today, I was on the phone to one of the members of Parliament in Northern Ireland, who's now done his private member's bill and is pushing it through in Northern Ireland, which is very crucial because puppies obviously pass through Republic of Ireland into Northern Ireland and come to the UK. So ideally what we want to do is make it across the UK that the only way you can get a dog is straight from the breeder, or to go to rescue, and automatically that makes everyone selling a dog accountable. And it's all about accountability, and it's something that we've never really had before because of third-party dealers. So it's very complicated, but it's also very simple at the same time, if that makes sense. But we hit so many brick walls, and our campaign was sabotaged, it was blocked, all sorts of things happened along the way. So I do recommend, I know it's such an obvious plug, and this time last year I was writing it, so I do recommend buying it, only because it's an interesting story if you love dogs, but it's also an interesting story if you love campaigning and if you love protecting the most vulnerable. And if you're thinking about being a campaigner, you've pretty much got all the tricks and tools in there that you can actually make a difference. So I do recommend it, and it makes a great Christmas present if only Christmas was just around the corner.
Exactly. I mean, that brings God, I've got a million questions. First of all, I want to say, Marianne, thank you so much for jumping on and saying rescue is best. I am obviously a very big fan of rescues. Everybody who knows me knows I've got my 2 rescue boys, and they're amazing. But also, I just wanted to point out, one, Mark, you're a massive inspiration, and I am thrilled that you've said about that book plugging how to set up your own campaigns, because I am very aware of how massive it is to do a campaign like that. I mean, you've just said you've basically dedicated 10 years of your life to that. That is no small thing. That's a humongous achievement, and you must be so proud and exhausted. And I've no doubt that shaved 10 years off your life as well.
Yeah, without a doubt. But I mean, I have to stress, it's definitely one of the proudest things I've ever been involved with. But, the people, I know we wanted to talk about teamwork, but the people that have been alongside me the whole way, I could never have obviously done it without them. So, and there were so many different stages. I mean, early on, I didn't know about politics. I had no clue about politics. And the only thing I really knew about politics was watching Spitting Image with my dad, when I was a kid. And Westminster just wasn't anything to do with me, because I was a science nerdy geek. All I wanted to do was be a vet and help animals. So what happened in Westminster was something that happened to people in suits and on the news. And then, of course, when I started, and the inspiration for fighting to ban third-party sales came from a night on call when I was a vet running an emergency clinic in Brighton, where I live. And all these puppies were coming in dying of parvo. There was about 8 in total, but they were all coming from owners who went to subscribing practices to my emergency clinic. And all the puppies looked quite similar, all in various stages of parvo sort of death and disease, which most of you people watching will kind of know what that looks and smells like. We saved 6, we lost 2. And then I kind of did a bit of digging and went to find out where they were coming from, and they were actually being bought. The whole batch of puppies came from the same place, even though they were owned by different people, which was a legal licensed third-party dealer just outside Brighton, who was buying them in from a legal licensed puppy farm in Wales. I think what most people don't realise is puppy farms are legal on the whole. They are legal and licensed by the local authorities. So when you hear people going on about, unlicensed puppy farms, yes, they exist, but it's more the legal ones, and it's a legal form of cruelty. And the third-party sellers were kind of just a legal form of dealers being complicit in the same cruelty. So the classic one was, someone would go to get a puppy, they'd come to the vets, and the puppy had a problem. It's like, where'd you get it from? Pet shop. And then they go back to the pet shop. You sold me a puppy that was dying. No, I didn't. It was fine when you bought it. Well, who bred it? Can't tell you. And there was never any accountability. So it was all about that. So I did for a few years a dog show. It's the only thing I could do. I was a TV vet. I was on Paul O'Grady show, so I had media contacts. So I got celebrities together and got them to judge a celebrity judge dog show, which started off as being called the world's biggest puppy party, and then ended up being called Pup Aid, which was ran for 2 years in Brighton, and then I moved it to Primrose Hill. And the premise was really to change public behaviour using celebrity. So down in Brighton, we had celebrities, we had music. It was called Pup Aid because it was based obviously on Live Aid. So there was a musical element, but we also had a celebrity judge fun dog show. And then at the most busiest point, which was usually lunchtime, we'd have a parade of rescued ex-breeding dogs. So that was the evidence of why we were all there. Moved it to London, celebrities became much, well, not necessarily bigger, but there was more of them because it was a lot easier accessible. And Primrose Hill, obviously, there's a lot of celebrities around there. And the first one we had in London was like Ricky Gervais and Brian May, Peter Egan, Joanna Page, Sarah Harding, Liam Gallagher. I mean, it was incredible for a first ever dog show in Primrose Hill. We did it for 7 years there. And over the years, it got bigger. And because so many different celebrities were attending from different demographics, from Rachel Riley and Sue Perkins to Made in Chelsea and Towie, and then Love Island, actually, in later years, we were able to help educate the sort of different populations of people. But I knew that kind of wasn't enough after a few years, and we had to go and do something a bit more. And it was Caroline Lucas, who's one of my local MPs in Brighton. And I just advised her what dog to get for her family, and she ended up getting a rescue Labrador. And she said, come up to Westminster and tell me about your campaign. And that was kind of my dipping my toe in Westminster for the first time, which was incredibly daunting. And I remember, I say this quite a lot, but it's a really good analogy. In Gladiator, when the slaves go into the Colosseum for the first time, and they're like, what is this place? That was me in Westminster. And my second visit, I was so inexperienced as a campaigner. I was meeting an MP, and I took my mum and my grandma with me because it was like I was like a tourist. So that was the level I was entering at, was not knowing really what I was doing, not really knowing how the place worked, and having no experience in politics, history, or law. And then over the next 6 years, I went there, I think, about 300 times, every day off of work, and sometimes more. The last 20 or 30 visits were inside number 10. That's when you know you're getting close. And we managed to do it. But you know, so in the Pup Aid days, the dog show days, it was Stuart and Bex. We did it together. I was kind of the creative front man, and they were like the absolute brains behind it and making sure the events ran smoothly and the documents were all okay, especially for someone like Primrose Hill, which is a rural park. they weren't keen to start with, but they loved it at the end. And then as we started going through Westminster, a lot of like-minded campaigners came together. So Linda and Sue from Cariad, and Julia Carr, Canine Action UK, and Sarah Clover, who's Institute of Licensing, Philippa Robinson, who we sadly lost to cancer along the way as well. So really it was a group of 5 or 6 people going through as grassroots campaigners, using all the resources we had, which were pretty much time in the evening and creativity. And every time we hit a brick wall, which was many, many times, we had to think of something creative to get us out of it. And when you compare yourselves or ourselves with these huge corporate organizations in our sector who have money, who have resources, who have staff, and things have never really improved to a point where it's acceptable. It was amazing feeling to lead a bunch of campaigners to actually start making those improvements that have been needed for years, for decades. And to make all breeders accountable is definitely the first step in ending puppy farming. I haven't stopped campaigning. I'm still doing it. I'm still running a campaign about banning the import of puppies under 6 months of age, which is going well. But it's something that I love doing, and it's the majority of campaigning is pretty lonely. It's very hard. You never switch off. But there are the 2% of campaigning is sort of fun, and you get to do incredible stuff and meet amazing people and have mind-blowing experiences. So I would recommend it, but it's be prepared for the long haul.
No, that's amazing. First of all, I want to just catch up on the messages. So Lisa, thank you so much for jumping on. I hope you're still here. And she said, thank you for talking about my Lucy with so much love. So that's lovely. And Lisa, I am very honoured that you are watching this. Yes, exactly. Hi, Lucy.
Can you say that? Oh,
um,
there you go.
I'm sure that Lucy is watching as well. So yeah, thank you so much, Lisa, and well done being part of this, because this is a big thank you to you as well, Lisa. And Jackie also says, lovely video, Mark. Great work. You do well done here. And here's to the next book from Jackie Mincer. So thank you for that, Jackie. And I will put a link for the book in these notes
Oh,
afterwards.
cool.
So
Thank you.
that's cool.
And there is another book coming. There is another book coming.
Yay. You're so passionate. I mean, I also want to point out here that you are a normal bloke. And what I mean by that is
I am.
it's really important to point that out, because, people think, oh, well, he's done it because he's a vet, or he's done it because he's a that. Vets are normal people too. And, what you've pointed out is how awestruck you were by that moment of stepping into Westminster and being wowed. I mean, I've been in there as a tourist, and it is a pretty intimidating place.
It
You do
is. It
walk in
is.
and go, whoa. So it's an incredible thing that you've done, and it's just really nice to point out that you are a normal bloke, just because it is inspiring them for other people to realize that they can do it too.
Do you
And
know,
actually, it takes
you're
normal
absolutely
people.
right. Anyone can do it. You just have to kind of put in the legwork. As I said, I didn't know anything about politics, and I've ended up changing the law. It's doable, and even if it's not about changing the law, anyone can raise awareness. Anyone can share petitions. Anyone can retweet something that helps raise awareness. So there are different levels of what you can do in terms of. It sounds a bit like, oh, look at me, but sort of making the world a better place. And instead of sort of moaning and finger pointing and blaming, if you swap that energy for actually, maybe starting a campaign or joining someone else's campaign or raising awareness about something, things would probably improve a lot quicker.
I agree.
But
I completely agree.
it's a phenomenal place, Westminster, and yeah, I mean it's obviously in the forefront of the news. It has been for the last since forever, but even more so, with obviously Brexit and obviously with COVID, we're seeing politicians and ministers all over the place at the moment on the news, and it's fascinating now knowing what's going on behind the scenes to watch how things are being dealt with.
Yeah.
But I mean, I kind of love it. It's like a new hobby. It's a bit of a drug, because you're in the mix and you can create change and you're making change. And at the end of the day, I only wanted to be a vet so I could help animals, and I'm hopefully helping them on a much bigger scale. So I do miss
You really are.
being a vet in practice, without a doubt. But I
Yeah.
love the fact that I'm helping shape the future to protect dogs and cats and other animals for years to come.
You've done so well. And your mum has even jumped on here, which is lovely. Thank you, Ruth, for joining us and saying that she is very proud of her son and he won't give up. And that does make you sound a bit like a terrier.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's fantastic. So, yeah, thank you for sharing that, Ruth. And I just also want to touch base a bit about obviously the health implications, because obviously some people might be thinking, well, if it was legal, why is it bad? And so obviously the health implications is a big thing for me. That's what I think of. I mean, can you just sort of rattle off some of that side of it a little bit for people to understand, why puppy farming is so bad?
Yeah, I mean, puppy farms are bad. So first of all, you've got the health of the puppies. So largely unvaccinated, kept on sort of straw, sawdust, inbred mainly, not really socialized adequately, kept often in the dark. Sometimes, depending on what they can see out of their pen, their sort of agricultural pen, if they can see other dogs, it's deafening noise. If they can't, and it's walled off, silence. So, and they're not obviously treated with with wormers or fleas or any of the treatments that we do give routinely as vets. You've got the mums, obviously, and this was always important. About one of the first bits of campaigning we did was the Where's Mum campaign, because most let's say most media friendly stuff that the big corporate organizations often put out is all about puppies, because it gets shared and it's cute. But no one ever talked about the mums, and it was the breeding mums that really was because of Lucy, and Lucy was sort of the queen of the breeding mums. The spotlight had to be on them because they were never ever considered. So Lucy kind of opened that door to thinking about them, and they are repeatedly bred. As we know, dogs can have 2 litters a year. the more money you can make out of them, the better for these puppy farmers. They're, again, not vaccinated. They're not given preventative treatment. A lot of them have mammary cancer. A lot of them have conjunctivitis, have pneumonia, need cesareans sometimes, especially sometimes in the brachycephalic, the short-nosed breeds, as you know. So this puppy farm itself is just a reservoir of disease and misery. A lot of the dogs never even see outside. And then, of course, you've got the stud dogs as well, and they can't be ruled out. They're kept in pretty horrific conditions as well. But then the health problems that the puppies come out with are medical. So, for example, parvovirus, diseases, obviously parasites. Yeah, you've also got surgical problems, a lot of eye problems, joint problems, a lot from inbreeding, congenital health defects, and of course you've got behavioural problems as well. So you have, problems because of inadequate socializing. So you have a lot of nervous aggression, separation anxiety. So you have, and I've said this again many times, like a ticking time bomb of all sorts of disease if they live. That's actually made 10 times worse by making them travel long distances as well. So this is the new campaign with regard to stopping puppies coming in from overseas puppy farms, because as well as all those problems for the bitches and for the stud dogs and for the puppies, those puppies now have to travel 38 hours sometimes. Sometimes they're flown to Amsterdam and couriered. Sometimes they just come by road in batched up in the back of vans. So and all of this is legal. And as you say, this is the thing. Just because something's legal and licensed doesn't make it okay with regard to animal welfare. The other thing to point out, and very relevant in terms of the campaign at the moment, in order to get things over the line when it comes to importing goods, let's say puppies, the human health aspect has to be prioritized. It's no good campaigning on animal welfare grounds. You won't get anywhere. But as soon as you say, and some of you may have noticed in the media recently, rabies risk. It's a serious risk because, even for puppies coming in 15 weeks, which is the legal limit now, lower limit, have to have a vaccine for rabies. Whether they've had it or not, who knows? But that rabies, that one shot has found to have been inadequate in preventing the disease. Also, we haven't got the period of the maximum incubation period of the disease. So puppies coming in now are disease risks from endemic countries with endemic rabies. There's also brucellosis. There's also echinococcus. There's also all sorts of ehrlichiosis and tick-borne diseases as well that not just animals are prone to, obviously including dogs in the UK and livestock, but also humans. So when we're talking about this new campaign, a lot of it is about the human risks. Because as soon as you mention human risks to health and public health threats, that's when the World Trade Organization rules can be changed because of the human health element. If you just go on animal welfare, no one wants to know. So it's interesting, legal suffering. You could argue that abattoirs, which is just a place where death happens, that's obviously legal suffering. It's called necessary suffering legally. So you open a whole new can of worms in a can, that's suffering. So how you word stuff, and this is what we've learned over the years in campaigning, how stuff is worded is so crucial to actually making any progress, because there are people out there, some of them who claim to be animal lovers or animal welfare people, who will pick holes in stuff and use anything that's wrong or not good enough as an excuse for either sabotaging it, blocking it, or just just throwing it out. So you have to be very careful at the level of campaigning we're doing at the moment, especially with Brexit. Language is everything, and I still get trolled on mainly on my Facebook page because people just haven't read stuff properly, and people just assume stuff, and they won't read the evidence. And it's annoying sometimes because me and my team literally can't do enough to make changes happen. And yet you do get people jumping on board saying, oh, you're just saying it because of that. I had the other day, you're just doing all this to be famous. And it's like, well, if I'm famous for changing laws and doing good stuff, then that's fine. But to accuse someone who's working pretty much 24/7 to improve animals' lives, I thought was a bit harsh. And the other thing is, it's the one comment that gets you, and the rest are all positive. But it's like, you kind of want to do everything to please everyone and help animals, but
I know that feeling.
you're never ever going to get everyone not singing your praises. I don't do it for that. It's just when people sort of actively go out and troll you, it's like, oh, really? What are you doing about it?
I totally agree with you. No trolling Mark, and no trolling anybody else. Everybody be nice.
Oh, I don't mind constructive criticism or scrutiny, but do it if it's evidence-based and you want to have a sensible conversation. But don't do it if you just to be a prick.
No, I completely understand. It's not nice to be not nice. Definitely not. What do they say? Scroll on by if you've got nothing nice to say. So yes, no, I agree. So yeah, everybody watching, jump on and say lots of lovely things here, because this should be full of lovely and happiness. And thank you, Mark, for telling us all about the sort of the bad side of it, because it is a picture that needs painting, and it's a horrible picture, and it's not something good. And it's also really interesting to have hear how you're saying that the words are so important as well, because and especially about the health side of things as well, because at the end of the day, COVID at the moment, everybody is so aware of health right now, and the fact that bats brought COVID, and so at the end of the day,
absolutely right.
You're in the right position to sort of say, no, we've proven that animals going wrong causes the problems, and of course there is that is avian flu and God knows what as well. So it's not unusual at all. So yeah, no, that's fantastic. So I just want also another audience comment. I love audience comments. Wagabonds Pet Services says, great live, Donna. Thank you, Mark, for all you do. There you go. You've got the thanks.
That worked.
Take special people to campaign so hard. I don't think enough people know how horrific puppy farming is, and if they do, they're quick to turn a blind eye. Sadly, yeah. I mean, it's so difficult, isn't it? Because when people are hurt by something, I think it's sort of human nature, isn't it? But you do have. That's why when you are that person that can see it and react, you have to do that, don't you? Because it is difficult.
Yeah.
People, isn't it? And some people suffered trauma themselves and God knows what, so it can be really hard, but hopefully enough people will wake up, listen, and at very least just sign a petition. That's something simple and quick, isn't it?
It really is. Sign and share a petition is probably the simplest, quickest way to kind of make a difference, if you like. There's obviously, as we said before, there's lots of different ways, but everyone can do something, and to sit by and do nothing kind of makes you a little bit complicit. But we all have the power, especially with social media now, and as professionals, if there's vet nurses or vets watching, we are professionals, and we do have a lot of the reason I think we were successful with our campaign is because I was a vet. It was very difficult to argue with the facts and the evidence and the science and the cruelty angle, but everyone has the potential to do something. And I can't recommend it enough. It's a brilliant thing to do to sort of protect the most vulnerable, if you like. And it doesn't have to be about animals, it can be about old people or children. Every one of those vulnerable communities needs help, and will always need help, and there's always stuff that can be done.
No, excellent. So Mark, I also do really want to know about you, the Mark, as well. So can you tell me, what do you like to do in your spare time, and do you have any?
I didn't really have that much when I was full on campaigning, because obviously I was working as a vet full time, and on my day off I was in Westminster, and being a grassroots campaigner, me and my team, who I mentioned earlier, we were working till 2-3 in the morning every night. It was a phenomenal time because we were getting stuff done. But it was in all the gaps that we had. Most weekends were taken up working, most evenings. However, now I have definitely managed to get a bit more time off in my schedule. I don't vet anymore. I'm pretty much campaigning full time. I'm living in Brighton, which is an amazing place to live, surrounded by amazing downs and seaside, and so I love going countryside walking. I love swimming. So I've been swimming a lot this year in the sea.
Wow.
I watch a lot of football. I go to Brighton. I'm a season ticket holder for Brighton. I hang out with my mates. I go to the gym quite a lot, and then proper hobbies when things get back to normal. Snowboarding and scuba diving are kind of my biggest love. So and traveling, obviously. But when I travel, I usually work when I'm there. But yeah, I do lots of different things. Yeah, it's all to escape all the other stuff. But I'll be honest with you, you're still thinking about all the campaigning stuff when you're doing most of these activities.
I've no doubt. Are you going to try and be an MP one day?
No, a few people have mentioned it, and there is a vet MP now. The MP for Penrith is a vet.
Oh wow!
Yeah, but no, and there's been a couple of lords that are vets or have been vets. But I always say that if you're an MP, you're kind of accountable and you're being paid for what you do. And I always say I like working in the shadows. I like facilitating stuff. I like providing evidence. I like introducing people to different people and making stuff happen. And I also am the secretariat and the co-founder of the all-party parliamentary group for dog welfare called AppDog. And that is a group that meets, it's an official group that meets in Westminster, or used to, every few months. We will do when all this is over. But that's bringing contentious issues into the House of Commons and having debates about it in our group. So we have maybe 150, 180 people come. We've had greyhound racing discussed. We've had dogs used in experiments. The last one we had in October 2019, last year, was about should dog behaviourists be regulated. So we have dog themed stuff, and we have pro and against, and we try and make progress that way. And if people are interested in that, it's totally free and it's really accessible. So if you haven't been to Westminster, it's a really good way to come to Westminster. And Lisa Cameron is our chair, MP, SNP MP. You can meet an MP and just see how kind of the process works. So go to AppDawg, apdawd.co.uk, and you can sign up to our free monthly newsletter, which I'm going to write this Friday, and keep up to date with what's kind of going on in Westminster, what petitions are out there that you can sign and share. Maybe that'll inspire people to start their own one. And then when things calm down a bit and become more normalised, come to Westminster, attend the meetings, and just be part of feeling what change is like. Because it's an amazing feeling. If you love animals, which I'm assuming most people watching this do, then to be part of change for improving their lives into the future, however small or big it is, doesn't make any difference. You are part of that whole puzzle, and it's a brilliant feeling if you like that, if you like animals. So yeah, I recommend it. Is that a long answer?
Amazing. So Mark has just invited everybody to join him at Westminster. So
yeah, please do. It's an amazing place. It's an amazing place.
Awesome. So I'll get the link in the end, in the notes in the end as well. So Lisa has also said, Mark, Minnie sends her love. So that's very kind.
I love my little Minnie. So I have a picture of Minnie. Minnie is a very special dog, and Minnie is also ex-puppy farm breeding dog. And I have many pictures of Minnie, but this is actually Minnie and Lucy.
Oh,
and she's a Bichon with no teeth, and her tongue hangs out. So she has pride of place. And there's actually a picture up there of me holding her outside number 10. So she's a very, very special dog, and kind of my favorite one, although I'm not allowed to say that if Lisa hears, because of Lucy.
Well, she's watching, but okay.
There we go. That's Minnie outside number 10.
That's an amazing photo. Well done.
She's very cool.
I was going to say, your mum's back on, and she says, takes fantastic photos of the sea and sunsets. You're a keen photographer as well, then. It
came out of lockdown, the first lockdown, really. We were only allowed an hour exercise. So I used to go on the beach. I live quite close to the beach. And every day I set myself a task of a different sunset. So had to point west, only had the beach ready to use. And it's amazing how in 1 month, I think we had a month of uninterrupted sunsets. So I took photos and I posted them, and one's made it into the Brighton and Hove calendar this year, which I'm very proud of because I've been buying it for 20 years. So it's kind of turned into a bit of a hobby. I quite like it. But it's very easy to take good photos when you're living by the seaside. Yeah.
Well, yes, but I still think there's got to be some talent. So well done.
Maybe.
Marlon, I hope I've said that right. I'm so sorry if I haven't. There is always, so he's saying there's always a bed in Switzerland for you if you feel like snowboarding there. There you go. You've got an invite to Switzerland.
Fantastic.
So what made you decide to be a vet?
Well, as my mum's watching, I will tell the story. I was 3 apparently, and I had a pet tortoise, and the tortoise had a wound in its leg, and the wound had a maggot in it. little blue bottle larvae, and I managed to get the maggot out with a twig in the back garden, and then the leg got better and the tortoise got better. And it was my first experience of sort of making something better, and the feeling of making something better. My uncle was a vet, so I kind of knew the job existed. So I think the two of them matched up in my head, and that was the only thing I ever wanted to do, was help animals. So yeah, it's a bit of a cutesy story, but
I love
that's and that's the only thing I ever wanted to do. So,
that's amazing.
Yeah.
That is fantastic. Lisa has also jumped on again, and she has said disgraceful and a lot of exclamation marks. And at least keep your favoritism to yourself.
There you go. Yeah,
Well,
it does get a bit stressful with the whole mini Lucy thing, but yeah.
Yeah, he knew that was going to be an issue, so
Yeah.
fair enough. So have you got any pets of your own?
I haven't at the moment. Unfortunately, I haven't got a lifestyle that would support it. But I am planning on getting a rescue greyhound, I think, in the new year when things calm down a bit. I've just got one more law to change, and then things should calm down a lot more.
I love that. I've just got one more law to change. And then
I know. Well, it's true, and it's the one about the puppy imports, and we're really close now. So hopefully next year will be not just for me, I think for the whole world, a fresh new beginning. And I think I will get a rescue dog, probably a greyhound. I love them, and there's a rescue shelter near me called Raisted, which is in Sussex, and they're already on the lookout for suitable candidates. So watch this space. Yeah, I get very jealous of rescue greyhounds when I see them sort of walking around, especially on the beach.
it's fair enough. I mean, I always feel like I'm in a lucky position. I mean, I've got 2 dogs, but you always think, well, I've got like a million dogs, really, because I consider all of the ones I treat like my little babies, and you have some sneaky cuddles with them all the time. So you're quite a lucky position when you work with them all the time as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah. So I obviously, I know you're not in veterinary anymore, but I have to ask this question because I love this question. What still grosses you out as a vet? What was the one thing that's always turned your stomach that was like, bleh?
I don't know, really. I mean, you're so in the moment, you don't really have time to be grossed out. But I guess the horrible smelling stuff is always the worst, like the cat bite abscesses or the pyos, anything with a lot of pus and green and horrible stuff. I think the fly strikes also are quite they're more disturbing, really. The state some people used to let their rabbits get into, and sometimes other animals, and you could always smell it and you could always hear it. And it was the naivety of some owners that they didn't even realize how bad stuff was, especially with rabbits in the summer, as with maggots. So there was a lot of things there. And then I've been traveling around, fly strike and maggots usually happens to dogs, especially in India. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff out there that's pretty horrific, but I think overriding that is being in a position to do something about it. And I think that kind of takes you out of thinking about it and you sort of treat it. But yeah, I mean, it's a funny old job, isn't it? I mean, when I did mixed practice, when I started as a vet, then you really see some horrific stuff on farms, and especially when it comes to smells and mummified. We don't need to talk about it because people are probably having or just had their dinner. But yeah, we do have a job that does attract a lot of smelly stuff. Let's just say that.
Yeah, the smells are definitely something that's
anal glands. Anal glands are a good one when it goes up your arm.
It's the chocolate vomit that always got me. The chocolate smelling vomit.
Oh, when you induce vomiting from a chocolate ingestion, that's pretty horrific. I think also, if you have a phobia about vomiting, which a lot of people do, as soon as you've given that apomorphine injection and you're waiting for it, that induces quite a lot of anxiety in a lot of people, not just vomit. So it's an interesting job, isn't it, the positions we put ourselves into.
I'll tell you this story just because it's quite funny, because this was literally last night and my dog decided to puke. And so the noise goes off, it's like the alarm clock, isn't it? So it was about 4 a.m. or something. And what was really funny was that my husband jumped out of bed, and we both did at the same time. But the first thing he did was go straight to his dressing gown. The first thing I did was go for the newspaper, because I was just like, why would you go for the dressing gown first? Save the bed.
So, there you go.
I had it all under control, but it was so
Good.
funny. I was like, God's sake, you're so programmed for it, especially when you do it in it's your work and it's your world.
Of course.
You literally just wake up, click, I'm working.
Yeah, work mode, definitely.
So honestly, we could just talk all day. This is crazy. So I wanted to ask you, who do you want to plug about your team that, I mean, I know you've got a massive team and amazing people and stuff, but, was there anyone particular you'd be like, oh, they need a mention?
Yeah, I mean, Lisa, who's watching, she's been exceptional. To have your dog's, your deceased best friend, really, made so public in such. I mean, it's in an amazing way, because obviously she was Lucy was honoured with this law. But I think to be repeatedly exposed to her name every day, multiple times, I think is. Can't be easy.
No.
Linda from Cariad, my sort of best mate, campaigner. We speak pretty much every single day. I have done for the last 10 years, sometimes twice a day, 3 times a day, never on weekends. I give her the time off. But we discuss stuff and we brainstorm. And sometimes, the first person I told about Lucy's Law, the idea when I had it was Linda. Everything goes through Linda. And she's based in Wales. And I would definitely recommend people follow Cariad. Just Google Cariad Dogs Wales and you'll find their website. There's a really good part on their website actually that says about how to report a seller, like a problem seller, puppy seller or puppy dealer. And there's a list of things that you can do, and I'll always send that to people. Sue, who's her colleague in Cariad, Julia Carr, who is like the legislative brains behind Lucy's Law and third-party selling for years. We've got Philippa, who sadly passed away, incredibly brave woman, and Sarah Clover, who's the barrister who sort of oversaw the legislation at the end. And then, Pup-Aid, Stuart and Bex. I think Bex is watching. Without them, I couldn't have done the dog shows. And now with Brexit, with people like Emily Rees and Paula Sparks and Edie Bowles, and it's become a lot more legal, legislative, and trade focused rather than animal welfare. So I don't know, it's weird. Over the years we've kind of and I say we, it's Linda and the original team have kind of surrounded ourselves with the best experts who are all dog lovers or dog owners or both, obviously, who are doing everything for free. I mean, the expertise I've got around me is mind-blowing, who are doing everything for free because of dogs. And that is an amazing resource to have access to. You don't abuse it, obviously, but everyone turns out. We had the EFRA Select Committee was yesterday, which was a huge deal in Westminster, which is when the minister was scrutinised about puppy smuggling, and we were asked to provide an evidence document, and we had 5 days to do it. And within the 5 days, we had sort of 3 barristers, 1 solicitor, 1 trade deal advisor, Julia Carr, who's an expert on the detail, Linda and myself. And we were working on a Google document over 5 days, and it was submitted with about 10 minutes to spare on 6 p.m. on the Tuesday. And everyone worked over the weekend. And you could just watch this document just morphing into something. And it's not just a document that was an evidence document. It was a document that contained legislative vehicles, actual laws that have been now written, new stuff for post-Brexit. So it was the only document, and it's online. You can watch it. You can look at it on the EFRA website under the written submissions. But it was an example of how people can just pull together for the right reasons and not just provide evidence, which was used in the inquiry, and we got a great result yesterday, but also to actually provide new laws that can be used by Number 10, by DEFRA, to go forward. So for me, campaigning is not just about oh, you should do that and you should do that and that needs to change. The true campaigners provide the solutions. Otherwise, you're just a bit, you're just someone who criticizes. So always have a solution ready. I was going to say oven ready. That's the proper Boris phrase. But in a way, what he was saying was the solution is there. We just have to act on it. And it's very much like campaigning. You should always come with a solution. Otherwise, you're just someone who moans about stuff.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
No, I agree. Well,
I would, sorry, just to jump on there, I would just say, if people are, maybe we can put this link up as well. if people really want to know what a campaigning evidence document is that's submitted to Westminster, then maybe we'll share that link as well, because it's the detail of and the expertise that's got into this. And remember, from someone that had no idea about politics or law or history, and you watch, it's just like a work of art. And I can't really take the credit for it because it's everyone else's expertise. But I'm pleased to be the one who facilitates it and sort of brings it together in the one document and then can send it in. And when we watched the inquiry yesterday, there's lots of name checks, which is fun. But it's incredibly important for our team to be acknowledged, because we're the only ones providing these solutions. The rest is just evidence that is just been out there. So yeah, it's a very strange position to hold, but incredibly proud of what everyone around me is contributing to it.
Well done to the whole of Marc's team. Absolutely amazing, all of you. It is fantastic. And now my next question, because obviously I'm a rehabber talking to you. I just wanted to ask, what do you love about physio?
Well, it's incredibly important. And I mean, the best example, and Lisa's going to love me for this, but she's got a dog called Plum Pudding, right? So she also puppy farm dog, and Plum Pudding a few months ago slipped a disc. And as you know, the rehab and the physiotherapy and the hydrotherapy post slipping a disc surgery is unbelievably important. And Lisa's been posting on Plum Pudding's page every day, every week, the progress. And I think it's 3 months now since the spinal surgery. It's unbelievable, the effects of animal physiotherapy. And, you know, Lisa's obviously been going to experts, but she's also been sent home with homework. When you see that on that sort of scale, I mean, I got the original videos when the disc went and Plum Pudding was pretty much off her back legs. And now to be walking around, wagging tail and, you know, doing hydro as well. It's mind-blowing. So yeah, it's incredibly important, and people should sort of look into it more, I think.
Thank you. And I certainly agree with you. And I hope people do look into it more. And that's why I'm grabbing all these nuggets of information. Lisa, if you can jump on and just tell us your story and your thoughts on physio, because obviously you've just been in that situation, that would be amazing too. Thank you. And by the way, Plum Pudding is a fantastic name for a dog.
And a fantastic dog. And she's actually going to the specialist tomorrow for kind of the final sign-off from the spinal specialist. So it's a big day, and I know Lisa's a bit nervous about it. So yeah, this will help, hopefully.
Oh, good luck, Lisa. I'm sure you've worked really, really hard. I'm sure it's absolutely fine. So I feel like you've already done this, but I want to ask anyway, if money was no object and time was no object, what would your dream achievement be?
Probably just to change all the laws that will end up protecting all the animals. I mean, it's pretty cliche, but that's the path I'm on.
You're like a teddy bear. That's what everybody wants to hear.
But yeah, and knowing how to do it, it's quite hard to sort of turn off. But I will say, and I said, you know, one more law to change. I'm going to write a book. The next book is about campaigning and how to do it. So hopefully that will help people just actually get on with it themselves in the nicest possible way. But with my parliamentary group, I'm kind of overseeing quite a few other campaigns. So pet theft reform, I'm working quite closely with that team, making scanning of microchips compulsory, central database of microchips, and in greyhound racing. There's so much stuff that needs to be done, not just with dogs, but all animals. But if I can sort of arm and empower those campaigners to do it themselves, I feel I've kind of influenced them in some way. So I'm not going to front anymore because it's exhausting, and I actually want next year to be the sort of a year of new beginnings and getting a dog, for example. But if I can help anyway with other people's campaigns, you know, that's kind of what I'm going to be doing. So yeah, that's me. I'm a campaigner, and that's what campaigners do.
That's lovely, because you're like stepping to the next level, you know, the mentor now, and, you know, guiding other people.
Yeah,
I think that's fantastic, and that's a really good natural progression, and you can help 10 campaigns as opposed to your one. So yeah, that's amazing.
And often you can sense the best campaigners with attitude. And I mean, you know, I'll shout out to Lucinda, who does the Greyhound campaign, just a phenomenal campaigner in terms of just the logic and the strategy and the creativity and just the will to just do it. I've seen some terrible campaigners, but then I was terrible when I started. So you can't really criticize. You just got to sort of help shape people and sort of just do. I mean, someone today sent me an email that they wanted to send to an MP. So it didn't need many tweaks, but there's a language that's spoken in Westminster, and if you can get your as close to that language as possible, you're more likely to get an answer. And funny enough, whoever it was sent this MP an email, and they got a reply within 10 minutes, and it was positive. And they were like, "Oh my God," they said yes. And I was like, "Yeah, I thought they would," because you have to write things in a certain way. And one of the ways I learned that, and obviously I didn't do politics or law, but I also didn't really do English literature. But one of the reasons I know how to speak politics, if you like, is when I was doing all the campaigning at night, and on my days off, I'd often have Parliament TV, BBC Parliament, on my laptop or iPad or whatever it was at the time, and just have it on in the background. You kind of learn. It's a bit like when they used to say, "Oh, you turn it on when you go to sleep, like a language, and you wake up and you're fluent." When you have it in your subconscious and you're learning would the minister agree with me, and with respect, and there's a lot of phrases that are used. If you can put them in your emails, you're more likely to get a response because you're actually sort of speaking their language. And not just that, it's using the petitions, it's using sometimes rallies outside Westminster, it's meeting MPs in the flesh. It doesn't have to be in Westminster, it can be in your constituency. They often hold surgeries on Friday and Saturday, or one or the other. So there's loads of ways of interacting with Westminster, if you like, that have to be done in a way that the MPs receive it well. Then they're more likely to act. One of the tips I always gave was, if you meet an MP, first of all, you thank them immediately. Second of all, you ask how long you've got with them. It can be 5 minutes, it can be an hour. And thirdly, find something on their Wikipedia or something to do with the constituency they represent to talk about immediately. So usually for me, that was a football team. How did Huddersfield Town do on the weekend? Because what that does is it takes them out of someone moaning at them, which is what they're used to, and actually someone being into they are. And you can have a little 2-minute conversation that you both know isn't really that relevant, but you then are on a level where you're talking as two human beings rather than a campaigner or a lobbyist asking for something. And finding common ground was essential, not just in veterinary, especially when I was an emergency vet, because people aren't seeing their normal vet, but when you meet MPs, and if you can find the common ground the quickest possible in seconds, and obviously football teams and constituencies is an easy way, but often, do you have a dog? Show me a picture of your dog on your phone. That. Oh, really? Yeah. Oh, show me your cat. And often that breaks down the barriers in seconds, and you'll get more out of that meeting. So it'll all be in the book, but there's so many things, which is basically relationship building, that you can do that are easy, they'll help get you better results.
That makes a lot of sense. It absolutely does. And I definitely agree with you about the language stuff as well, because I often think they're speaking Hebrew or something, because definitely off the planet. But it is interesting, you can learn it so well. So really good advice. So Lisa has jumped on. Thank you so much, Lisa, for this. It's really kind of you. She said pudding needed an emergency operation towards the end of June, a few days before her birthday. Oh, bad birthday, poor thing. She was literally fine 1 minute and then couldn't walk the next. So utterly heartbreaking. I know. I mean, the emotions in that would have been horrendous, and that is how it goes. Following surgery, she had weekly hydrotherapy with a local physiotherapist who has been pivotal in her recovery. Well done, that physio. I couldn't recommend it enough. Well, thank you, Lisa. That's great, because us physios all want to know that we're doing great things. It's literally helped Pudding walk again and given her a brighter future. Wonderful. Thank you so much, Lisa. It's really kind of you to say, because, every physio wants to know they're doing amazing things out there. So that's really lovely. And well done to your physio. That's amazing. So I think I've got time for one more question, because like I say, we have literally could talk all day. If you could do,
we can go on a bit longer if you want. I'm happy to chat more.
Oh, bless you. So if you could Facebook Live with anyone, dead or alive, who would it be?
Well, the clue, because I knew this question was coming up, and the clue was this mug. So those watching who know about Latte Larry's will know that I'm obviously a big fan of Curb Your Enthusiasm. So I would have to say Larry David, who I did meet once in New York for a few seconds, but he is possibly one of the funniest guys on the planet. So I would love a FaceTime Live with Larry David.
Amazing.
And if you haven't seen Curb Your Enthusiasm, then you watch Curb Your Enthusiasm from the beginning, turn every device off, and just enjoy its sheer genius, brilliance. Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to have to do that, and hopefully, if Larry's listening, he'll contact you. That'd be amazing, and then I can watch that as well. And tell us something that people don't know about you.
Wow. What? I was thinking about this, and what sort of level are we at here? Because I guess you could say I have a bowl of salad every weekday, as a bit of an OCD. I have a Golden Delicious apple every night because my dad used to have a Golden Delicious apple every night, and every time I have a Golden Delicious apple every night, I think of him. It's like a little tribute before I go to bed. So that's a kind of a routine I do. But yeah, I'm as you said at the beginning, I'm kind of a normal bloke. My mum would like me to say, and I will say it actually because it's relevant to the campaigning, I'm a third generation refugee from Holocaust survivor. So my grandma, who possibly is watching, I'm not sure. So she's 100 in March, my grandma. But she escaped Nazi Germany on the Kindertransport. Her parents were murdered in Auschwitz, and she came here and set up from scratch as a young adult. So she went from one country where she was hated to coming here where we were at war with Germans. So, but she made a life. She didn't really have anyone waiting for her because she escaped on the Kindertransport. Amazing story. She sort of ducked under the barriers when they were all getting rounded up to go to the concentration camp. She put on a Red Cross. She found a Red Cross uniform from a fancy dress shop, came back and actually pretended to be one of the Red Cross nurses helping the children escape. Wow. Because she was slightly too old to actually be included in the Kindertransport program. So she's really been my inspiration as well, to sort of anything is possible. And one of the most moving moments of the campaigning was when in our first e-petition debate, which was back in 2014, the decision to rescue the kids from Germany on the Kindertransport was made in the chamber of the House of Commons. She was sitting next to me. So she was alive because of what was going on in the main chamber. And my debate was happening because of me, and I was alive because of her. So it was this really weird sort of spooky loop. And to top that off, there's actually a plaque when you come down the stairs from the public gallery just outside, just off Central Lobby in the House of Parliament, dedicated to the 10,000 children that were rescued and escaped on the Kindertransport. And she was kind of the 10,001th because she was the one that wasn't meant to be on it, but she escaped on it. So, yeah, the third generation refugee is probably something that not a lot of people know about, well, which I'm incredibly proud of.
Yeah, you should be, and I'm really glad I asked that question.
Yeah, it's a long-winded answer, but there's a lot of history, and you know that comes with having a tiny family. You know, most of the great grandparents were murdered in camps, and so it has definitely inspired me and made me quite driven to keep going and keep campaigning and keep protecting the most vulnerable, because I've got a bit of a soft spot for protecting vulnerability, I think. So yeah, that's probably something that people don't know. But if you follow me on Twitter, you will definitely have seen me taking pictures whenever I go and see my grandma at her care home. And she's hilarious. I mean, she still emails me nearly every day. She knits hats for premature babies, and she's been planning her 100th birthday party for the last few years. So yeah, she's an exceptional human being and incredibly inspirational. Yeah,
100-year-old grandma emailing, inspirational right there. I mean, my God, my dad doesn't even email.
And hilarious emails, and graphics and emojis and all sorts of stuff. So yeah, just really funny. And yeah,
that's amazing.
Yeah, she's
wow.
hilarious.
That is absolutely incredible. What an amazing story. Thank you so much for sharing that, because that's definitely well worth sharing.
Yeah, so you've got the salad a day, and which is quite boring. We've got my apple a night because of my dad, who we lost 4 years ago, and that's kind of my tribute to him. And then we've got the whole grandma Kinder Transport escaping Nazi Germany third generation thing, which is obviously pretty huge. But they are all
Oh,
they're
your camera's
all
frozen.
things that I'm very proud of.
Good. So you should be. So Physio, my dog, Harriet, I know who she is. She's just jumped on and said, your grandma sounds amazing. So yeah,
She
everybody
is.
feels exactly the same. So I don't feel like I can top any other question, if I'm honest. I was going to ask, what's your most memorable part of your career so far, but I feel like I know that.
No, memorable part of career. There's obviously a few, and I love all the stuff I've done internationally. But I think there was a moment, two really, I wanted to bring up. One, well, there's a few. I mean, Lucy's Law passing into legislation and hearing everyone go, the ayes have it, and it was in law that moment. But really, when I sourced the Prime Minister's rescue dog Dilyn for him and her with his fiancée Carrie. When we set all that up, that was quite incredible because I met Carrie and I knew Carrie anyway for campaigning. She's an amazing campaigner. Went to number 10, had the meeting with her, discussed where to get the dog from, and it turned out to be Friends of Animals Wales, which is a volunteer-run rescue in South Wales, who only receive ex-breeding dogs that are going to be shot, or puppies that have got problems that are going to be drowned. Now, Dilyn had an undershot jaw, so he was probably going to be drowned. So I set up email intro with Eileen, who runs the charity, and Carrie. Left them to it. Had a guided tour around the flat. You hear about the flat in Downing Street. It's not. It's massive. It's like a 3-story mansion with a number 11. Saw the bedroom and saw walk-in wardrobe. It was so funny because they'd just moved in, so Carrie was all excited and gave me a guided tour. Anyway, then I was in Spain the following week. Hadn't heard anything, and then my phone rang, and it was a mobile I didn't recognise, which I never ever answered. I was a bit drunk on the beach with some friends, and I'm calling, and it was funny because I put him on speakerphone because I was with some friends, and he said, I'm so terribly sorry. Are you abroad? And I said, yeah, I'm in Spain. Just arrived in Spain on holiday. I'm terribly sorry for interrupting your holiday. And it was like, no, Prime Minister, you can call me whenever you like. And so that was amazing. And my point being, when we delivered Dilyn, the little Jack Russell Cross rescue dog, to number 10. And that was important for me because I'd seen Obama, he was actually gifted puppies, Portuguese water dogs. I just thought, what an opportunity to promote rescue on a global scale, missed. So I was keen to get a rescue dog into number 10. When we delivered Dilyn, there was a moment in the garden. I had my Lucy's Law rosette, and Dilyn was running around, and it was fun, and Boris and Carrie and the Downing Street photographer. And I said to Boris, putting the rosette on, and he was like, no, absolutely fine. And he put the rosette on, held Dilyn. Dilyn had the rosette, and Carrie had the rosette, and I had the rosette, and everyone had rosettes. And that moment was from a grassroots campaigner who had no idea about politics to not just changing the law, but now the Prime Minister is wearing the campaigning rosette. Yeah. That was definitely a moment. We also given a garden party in 2018 when the decision for Lucy's Law was the guest. This uncle growing up suddenly had a guest list for a garden party at number 10 Downing Street. So we filled the garden with celebrities and campaigners, and most importantly, ex-puppy farm breeding dogs. So these dogs had come from these horrible hellholes in Wales, and were now running around the garden of number 10. And Downing Street Kitchen even baked bone-shaped treats for them. And for me, that was a moment. And then when we all filed out after 2 hours of the most incredible garden party in number 10, I ended up making an impromptu speech from the steps of number 10 to all the people in Downing Street who'd just been at the party. And that's only reserved for prime ministers, which I didn't know, of course. So I started doing this speech, and apparently I only found this afterwards. The security guys were about to stop me, and they apparently just went, "I'll just let them do it." So I did this speech. I was holding little Minnie in my arms, and I was standing next to Lisa, who had plum pudding, on the steps of Number 10, giving a speech. And I think that's got to be one of the most craziest moments of my life. I mean, who does that? But incredibly privileged, and every second of it I just love, and it was all worked for. And when I said before, like 98% of campaigning is hard and it's stressful and it's depressing and it's really, really tough. But you do get those moments, and those moments can include, meeting the Prime Minister, or hanging out with Ricky Gervais, or making a speech from the steps of Number 10. These are not normal things that vets do. And I'm incredibly proud and privileged to have enjoyed every second of it, and still smile every time I think of all those things. So there's been amazing moments.
Well done. Very, very, very impressive, and very, very, very inspiring. So I just want to also get your last thing. Can you give us a tip for enjoying Christmas with your pets?
Yeah, it's a tough one because there's so many things I want to say. So I say the tip would be to beware of hazards, which allows me to then have a little list rather than just pick one thing. So I think obviously be careful of all the Christmas dangers. So if you've got dogs, obviously fairy lights and tinsel, loud noises, strangers coming, which they are now, aren't they? Because we are allowed to mix households. Chocolate. And you'll know this from being a vet nurse, one of the commonest emergencies at Christmas, wasn't it? On Christmas Day, the dogs found a box of chocolates wrapped up and just eaten the lot, and we have to induce vomiting. The wrappers and all. Turkey carcass, make sure it's disposed of, because that can cause perforation or constipation, or both. Raisins, sultanas, grapes, mince pies, fruit cakes, Christmas cakes, all that stuff, potentially lethal. Tinsel can cause obviously intussusception, which is a kind of a type of blockage in the guts that needs surgical intervention. Macadamia nuts, not great either. Gravy, because it contains onion. And fairy lights, mainly for puppies who are sort of more inquisitive. Also house rabbits as well. So and cats have their own problems as well. So there's so much to think about. Do your research. I mean, there's plenty of it online, but just make sure. And strangers really for me is a big deal, because sometimes when people aren't familiar around animals, and those animals aren't familiar with those people, all those pets need a room or a den, a safe space to be able to cope and de-stress, and just be quiet time, because I think there's that pressure cooker environment, especially when there's maybe kids involved who are inexperienced around animals, that can lead to dog bites or cat bites, or let's say surprise incidents. Oh, he doesn't normally do that. Well, he's not normally in this environment. So I think just be aware, do your research, and just keep pets out of any position that they could be harmed in any way. It's pretty straightforward.
It's a very good bit of advice. So basically just to consolidate, just think of all those hazards that could happen, avoid them, and then that way you can all have a nice stress-free Christmas together and not have to worry about.
I would also add, if I'm allowed a part two, that when we're buying gifts for our pets, which we do as a country, increased levels every year, anthropomorphism and clothes and all sorts of things, which is fine, but also spare a thought for pets in rescue shelters who haven't got a family. And I think if you can present match or gift match, go down to your rescue shelter, or depending on what the COVID restrictions are, obviously take blankets and toys and treats and food, and give them something as well. And if you can't get there, or if you're not allowed, then maybe make a donation. Rescue centres have not really been looked after that well during the pandemic in terms of financially, and they do need all the help they can get. So maybe if you are giving your dog an expensive jumper, maybe spend the same amount on donating to the charity, or maybe providing a gift yourself. And then in the new year, maybe consider adopting as well, or just fostering. As I said, there's always stuff that we can do.
No, absolutely. That's a really, really good idea. And actually, a lot of rescues now and stuff have got like Amazon pages or whatever, so you can even have a wish list of what they need, so
Yeah.
you can actually make sure that it's actually relevant and you know where that bit of money's going because you're organising it. So if you're ever worried about how you're spending it, you know, there's lots of ways of doing it to feel a bit more in control as well. So
Yeah, and also think about local charity who don't have the resources, who don't have these bottomless pockets.
yeah,
A lot of them are volunteer run. A lot of them just have huge vet bills. A lot of them are massively in debt. So if you are going to, and hopefully you are going to go local, then I think that would benefit more animals and more directly than maybe donating to some of the bigger charities. So yeah, shop around, but consider your local rescue or local sanctuary.
absolutely. That's fantastic. Fantastic advice. So thank you so much for all of you, all of everything you've told us.
That's all right.
It's been so lovely to talk to you, Mark. And, you know, honestly, you're so inspiring and you should be so, so proud of yourself. I'm not surprised that your mum is so proud of you and watching everything that you do. And thank you
And
to
I'm
all.
proud of her too.
Good.
Just
There
so
you go,
just
Mum.
so we've ticked that box. I'm very proud. I mean, she's been incredibly influential in my life. Obviously, you know, my love of animals was really from having pets from very young, but also from playing outside and being involved with nature, and you know, and I think I'm so fortunate to have had parents that provided that sort of lifestyle. And that's what got me hooked on wildlife and nature and broken eggshells and feathers and wanting to help animals. So yeah, a huge love and a thank you to my mum and sadly my dad, but the two of them really provided a very safe upbringing, that I was allowed to interact with nature as much as possible and become this animal lover that's just pursued his dream, I guess.
It's so important. It's so important. And your mum has just jumped on and said, thank you, Mark, and given you 2 kisses.
Is that all? Is that all? That's a bit mean. And I got to say, my sister was the cool kid. So I have an older sister, and she was the cool kid who didn't do any of the animal stuff. But she was sort of she was the rebel, and she went to parties. I was the nature nerdy geek who just literally studied. When I finished my homework, I'd make more homework and then make more homework. I'd set my alarm for 3 a.m. to watch Open University programs about how ammonia was made. I literally couldn't learn enough because all I wanted to do was get into university and be a vet. So yeah, it's been an interesting few decades, let's say. But yeah, thanks to everybody involved who supported me in whatever capacity.
Oh, bless you. I feel like I should have given you a BAFTA now.
Yeah,
That's a lot of thank you.
But it's all a lot of it's in here. Final plug, I promise. A lot of it's in here about childhood and about campaigning and about Lucy's Law, obviously, and about Lucy, about her story. You know, how she was rescued and how she was fostered, and all the adventures she got up to with Lisa. So I can't recommend this enough, even though I wrote it, which sounds mental, but it's just got so many different aspects of campaigning and pet ownership and what's achievable by anyone watching this or your friends. And I do recommend campaigning because it's a great feeling, and you're actually you're helping improve the world, which sounds a bit like, oh, look at me again, but it's true.
No, it doesn't.
You know?
It doesn't. You honestly, you're allowed to have that, Mark. You have done so much. You're allowed to have that, and so just take it. You've done amazingly. Okay. But you're an inspiration, and so it's really important that you see that, because it takes people like you to make other people do the amazing things that they're going to do as a result of seeing you. And honestly, I can't say that enough. It's just so important.
Thank you. Well, I appreciate that, Donna. It's really sweet of you. Yeah,
it's important.
It's always been a team effort, and I'm incredibly proud to be part of that team. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for speaking to me. I've had an amazing time, and thank you so much to the wonderful audience for joining us, and thank you to everybody who's made comments and, you know, really got involved. It's been a really, really great cup of tea, and I look forward to our next cup of tea in 2 weeks. So everybody's watching, make sure you push your little bell button so that you get the notification for the next cup of tea with Vet and my next Not Lives. Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Donna. Thanks for watching, everyone. Cheers.